Far beyond the orbit of Pluto, in the cold silence where only deep-range satellites kept watch, a transmission arrived, one unlike anything Earth had received before. It came from the Galactic Council, a coalition of dozens of powerful alien civilizations that had shaped the politics, economics, and wars of the known galaxy for millennia. The message was formal, spoken in perfect translation, and carried no emotion. Earth was to surrender its sovereignty, deactivate all military production, and submit to Council supervision within 20 Earth days, or face consequences that would ensure compliance through force. On the surface, the demand appeared simple, a calculated warning to what the Council saw as a minor world, unstable, chaotic, filled with internal conflict, and lagging in technological progress. To most members of the Council, Earth was a wild world, not yet mature enough to hold power. Among the stars, but in the quieter corners of the council chambers, among analysts and deep intelligence officers, there were whispers-old reports buried in classified vaults that spoke of sudden Terran breakthroughs, lost probes that had vanished near Sol, and secret surveillance drones that returned damaged, scorched by unknown energy signatures. Some believed Earth had been hiding something for decades, maybe longer. When Earth's diplomats received the decree, the planet held its breath. News leaked, panic spread, and governments scrambled to present a united front. On the world stage, Earth requested more time and extension to discuss terms, to negotiate peacefully. The Council believed the request was made out of fear. In truth, it was to give Earth's true leaders time to act. Behind the scenes, deep beneath continents and hidden within orbital shadows, Terran High Command convened. These were not politicians or figureheads. They were strategists, commanders, and scientists whose names never appeared in the news. Their plan had been in place for generations, passed quietly between trusted leaders. Project Aegis, a protocol built not for expansion, but for survival. Aegis was Earth's final shield, a global defense network of hidden assets, experimental weapons, artificial intelligence coordination, and contingency systems designed to activate only if Earth ever became the target of an existential threat. As the world pretended to negotiate, Aegis began its silent awakening. Deep-sea vaults unlocked beneath the Pacific. Defense satellites powered up from behind the moon's far side. Old mines disguised as meteor research stations realigned in high orbit. Across military labs, long thought decommissioned, personnel returned under black-level clearance, running diagnostics on systems too advanced to be publicly known. The skies remained quiet, but Earth was stirring. In a command facility, buried beneath the Greenland ice shelf, General Rhea Calder stood before a vast holographic display showing Sol system traffic, alien fleet positions, and growing signs of hostile movement near Mars. She had waited her whole life for this moment, not because she wanted it, but because she believed it would come. Her voice, calm and sharp, echoed through the command chamber. Activate full planetary readiness. Assume threat posture. Begin Phase 1 of Aegis. Orders relayed through encrypted channels. Across the globe, specialized units mobilized. Under civilian cover, drone swarms lifted quietly from underground silos camouflaged as geothermal vents. On the surface, the media showed calm diplomats speaking of peace, but in the background, the planet was turning into a fortress. The Galactic Council watched Earth's delay with mild irritation. Some of its younger delegates mocked humanity's hesitation. Others urged caution. But the majority believed Earth was bluffing. They had faced rebellion before. No backwater planet had ever resisted Council force for long. What they didn't realize was that Earth had learned from the galaxy, not through diplomacy, but observation. It had studied Council tactics, broken down salvaged alien tech, and reverse-engineered theories far beyond its supposed level. While the Council saw chaos, Earth had been unifying in secret, not through governments, but through shared fear of being erased. And now, that unity had sharpened into a blade. 20 days would pass quickly. Earth had no illusions about what came next. It wouldn't be an invasion. It would be an example. The Council would send a fleet, crush resistance, and declare the planet pacified. But this time, the prey wasn't unarmed. Earth was not waiting to be saved. It had built its own. Salvation. In the stars above, hidden Terran satellites rotated into position, each one armed, watching, and ready. The countdown had begun. And somewhere, in the vast silence of space, someone would soon learn the truth. Earth was not afraid of the galaxy. It had just been waiting for the right moment to show its teeth dot as the Council's fleet moved steadily toward the Sol system. Confidence ran high among the alien commanders. Earth, after all, was considered a minor power, too loud, too emotional, and too fractured to pose real resistance. The operation was meant to be fast: seize the orbital lanes, disable military satellites, issue planet-wide surrender orders, and then install a Council monitoring force. But the moment the first wave of scouts crossed Neptune's orbit, everything began to unravel. The lead recon cruiser, the Algoth Spear, disappeared from sensors without sending a distress signal. Its sister ship, Vither's Eye, transmitted a single garbled warning before its signal cut into static. Council analysts assumed a solar anomaly or a navigational error. But the truth was far more precise and far more terrifying. Earth had seen them coming long before they arrived. Hidden in the dark of the Kuiper Belt, Terran listening posts had tracked Council fleet movement across 5 systems. Quiet transmissions had triggered Earth's defenses, not in panic, but with surgical precision. From the depths of Earth's oceans, bunkers that had slept beneath tectonic plates began to stir. Massive silos, disguised as mineral caverns and shielded from orbital scans, opened their launch rings. They didn't fire missiles instead. They released long-range stealth probes that raced silently toward Mars and beyond, invisible to standard. Sensor tech. On the moon's far side, a shadow peeled away from the cratered surface. The Leviathan Array, a mobile battle station powered by fusion loops and housing weapons designed not to win battles, but to end them. It rose slowly into position, aligning silently toward the outer planets. No broadcast, no warning, only purpose. Inside Earth's High Command, buried under Iceland's frozen plains, General Rhea Calder watched the real-time feed of every Council ship entering the system. She didn't blink when 2 more vanished, caught in what Council logs would later label unknown gravitational anomalies. In reality, they had flown too close to Terran decoy satellite structures equipped with singularity nodes that bent gravity to shred hulls like paper. Earth wasn't responding to the Council's presence. It was controlling the battlefield. At the Council's forward base on the edge of Saturn's orbit, alien officers began to see strange patterns, Terran energy spikes that didn't match known signatures, radiation trails that made no logical movement, and sensor ghosts that shifted in perfect formation. Council technicians ran simulations again and again, only to discover that Earth's response wasn't random, it was predictive. Every Council move was being mirrored, countered, and calculated before it happened. As fear crept through the ranks, some commanders requested permission to delay the operation. Others demanded the use of overwhelming force. But back on the Council's homeworld, the ruling chamber dismissed the concerns. Earth is bluffing, they said. Let the enforcement proceed. Meanwhile, across Earth's surface, civilians lived under calm skies, unaware of the precise movements occurring beneath their feet. Below cities, beneath forests, under mountain ranges, factories had come alive. Not factories of smoke and sparks, but clean, self-contained complexes It printed weapons using quantum materializers. Autonomous drones moved along magnetic paths, organizing crates filled with antimatter warheads, hyper-adaptive armor suits, and micro-AI command links. Warforms' massive humanoid constructs with neural cores stood in quiet rows, their systems waking one by one. They were not mass-produced machines. Each one was handcrafted by Terran engineers and synced to human thought. They could rewrite battlefield strategies in milliseconds, and they were about to be deployed. Earth had not been wasting time. For over a century, while the galaxy looked elsewhere, it had been preparing, not for conquest, but for survival. It learned from every alien probe it captured, dissected every black market weapon smuggled to its borders, and studied galactic politics from afar. It stayed quiet, broadcast weakness, played disorganized, and hid behind distractions. But it was never behind. It was simply hiding its true shape. On Earth's orbital edge, a cloaked platform known as Black Horizon intercepted the Council's strategic transmissions, feeding the data into Earth's main battle AI codenamed VEGA. Vega didn't just process commands, it evolved them. Within moments, it predicted that the Council would attempt a three-pronged attack on Earth's orbital ring. And so, before any ship moved, Earth had already placed deterrents in each sector, not just to defend, but to dismantle. The Council's war machine had never faced an enemy like this one that used silence as a weapon and preparation as its edge. Finally, one of the Council's data officers, an old Centauri named Rovon, broke protocol and accessed restricted records files once dismissed as rumors. There he found traces of black-budget human projects, lost expeditions, and unexplained encounters with Terran units that had never been confirmed. He realized what others refused to admit. Earth's image of chaos was a mask. Its disorder was a shield. And now that the mask was lifting, the galaxy would see something ancient. Predator built in the shadow of giants. Earth was not rising. It had already risen. The enforcement fleet was walking straight into the teeth of a waiting lion. And back on Earth, with the first strike seconds away, General Calder gave a quiet order. Let them see who we are. The countdown began. The sky was about to change. The Council's judgment came fast and without mercy. They had waited long enough, and Earth's silence was interpreted as defiance. As the stars shifted over the Sol system, 300 warships emerged from folded space, arranged in tiers of calculated aggression. Battle cruisers, support frigates, and mobile siege platforms deployed like a tide, forming an iron ring beyond Jupiter's orbit. Their commanders, confident in superior numbers and centuries of conquest, expected another swift campaign, a footnote in galactic history. But they had misjudged Earth completely. The moment the fleet crossed the designated boundary, Earth's automated warning beacons triggered a full system lockdown. Dozens of hidden defense platforms came online near Saturn's rings and the asteroid belt, revealing themselves not as ancient mining stations, but as armed sentries equipped with plasma-folding torpedoes. These weapons did not explode, they unraveled atomic structure itself, folding matter inwards until targets vanished into glowing silence. The first 20 ships were erased in under 7 minutes. Council ships scrambled to adapt, but Terran tactics had already rewritten the battlefield. The void between planets became a trap filled with invisible threads. As Council formations maneuvered to regroup, wave arrays activated massive atmospheric disruptors that manipulated gravitational pulses to tear away, shielding and strip ship hulls layer by layer. Entire squadrons lost functionality in seconds, drifting helplessly. As Earth's drones swarmed in, finishing what the wave arrays had started, panic began to take root among the alien commanders. Standard strategy did not apply. Earth wasn't meeting them with brute force alone. It was playing with layers of deception. Simulated decoy fleets, indistinguishable from real ones, darted across the system, drawing fire and confusion. Council sensors, once thought perfect, were rendered useless by Earth's deep space manipulation grid satellite networks that projected false gravity wells, redirected signal pings, and created ghost images of phantom ships. Commanders began issuing retreat orders, only to find their navigation blocked by unexpected gravity spikes, black hole mines launched from Earth's outer defense ring. These weren't traditional explosives. They created miniature singularities that collapsed anything nearby, tearing ships into spinning fragments. One such mine destroyed an entire destroyer wing in under 10 seconds. In the chaos, Earth remained quiet. No taunts, no broadcasts, only precision. For every ship the Council lost, Earth lost none. And while their enemy fought with outdated doctrine, Terran fleet movements operated on a different level. Artificial intelligence worked side by side with human tacticians, predicting enemy paths and adjusting tactics every few seconds. Earth's commanders were not improvising. They had simulated this war 1,000 times before it began. On the bridge of the Solaris Vanguard, General Rhea Calder stood calm among her officers as real-time data updated across the holosphere. She spoke in short, sharp commands, each one backed by VEGA's analytical predictions. There was no sense of victory in her tone-only control. She had studied the Council's playbook and written a better one in silence. At the same time, dozens of Terran warforms were deployed across the Moon and Mars, acting as planetary stabilizers. In case of orbital breach, none were needed. The Council's forward units, now reduced to scattered survivors, tried to break off and fall back, but Earth had anticipated every escape vector. From Europa's shadow, cloaked Terran stealth frigates decloaked, targeting retreating vessels with EMP, disintegration pulses weaponry thought impossible, now real and in use. What was meant to be a preemptive strike turned into an open-air disaster, with nearly 1/3 of the Council fleet disabled or vaporized within hours. The rest were too scattered or too afraid to continue the assault. From the outer colonies of the galaxy to its ancient trade routes, whispers of Earth's stand reached every channel. And then, for the first time since the attack began, Earth finally spoke. A single transmission was broadcast in every known language, carried by deep wave bursts across every Council frequency. It was a woman's voice, clear, cold, and undeniable. We do not kneel, we remember. There was no emotion, no threat, just truth. The transmission ended, leaving silence behind it. For the first time in living memory, the Council had suffered a complete military humiliation. On dozens of worlds, civilians stared at sky screens showing the wreckage of their grand fleet. Questions began to spread faster than damage reports. Who were the humans, really? How had they built such power in secret? And what else were they hiding? Inside this Council's central chamber, the ruling delegates sat in stunned silence. Their advisors could offer no comforting words. Earth had survived not by luck, but by planning so thorough, so patient, that it bordered on terrifying. They had not begged for peace. They had not asked for mercy. They had simply prepared. And when the moment came, they had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten: what happens when you push humanity too far. Across the stars, one message echoed louder than any explosion. Earth was not what they thought. Earth was something else entirely. The Council, once a symbol of unshakable unity across the stars, now found itself on the edge of collapse. The failed strike on Earth had sent shockwaves through every chamber and every government aligned with it. Some species demanded full-scale war to preserve their pride, while others, terrified by Earth's terrifyingly calm show of strength, pushed for immediate peace and withdrawal. Arguments broke out within council halls. Ambassadors shouted over each other. Old alliances cracked, and trust dissolved. Reports of fleet losses continued to surface, alongside recorded footage of Earth's unknown weapon systems and flawless battlefield precision. Yet Earth did not strike again immediately. Instead, while the Council tried to decide its next move, humanity quietly made theirs. Hidden within asteroid fields and orbiting black market hubs, jump-capable Terran cruisers began launching precision strikes not at civilian colonies, but at the supply chains and military research centers that fed the Council's war engine. These attacks were clean, targeted, and swift. Earth wasn't trying to dominate, it was disarming the future. Whole convoys disappeared without trace. Station reactors were deactivated without a shot fired, and key data cores were wiped clean by silent Terran infiltration teams. Each operation was conducted with ruthless efficiency, but no unnecessary bloodshed. Earth made a statement without ever raising its voice. At the same time, Terran diplomatic envoys, escorted by elite defense escorts, appeared in neutral systems with an offer not of submission, but of cooperation. These diplomats didn't threaten, didn't posture. They spoke calmly, clearly, and presented a new path forward. They offered shared technology to rebuild damaged ecosystems, protection for small colonies caught in the middle of council politics, and mediation channels for long-standing border disputes. And surprisingly, many began to listen. The galaxy, so used to power being expressed through domination and control, had never seen force wielded with such discipline. Earth had the power to crush entire fleets, and yet it chose precision. It had the chance to demand tribute or territory, yet it offered peace and self-determination. That choice puzzled even Earth's oldest critics. Across fractured systems and border worlds, whispers grew of a new kind of leadership, one forged not from pride or greed, but from hard-earned memory. People remembered humanity's violent history, its global wars, its internal chaos, and yet now, in the face of galactic arrogance, humanity restrained itself, not because it was weak, but because it had learned. That self-control inspired both fear and respect. Planets that had once feared Terran aggression now began opening communications voluntarily. Council members started defecting or declaring neutrality, unwilling to risk becoming the next cautionary tale. The Council itself, paralyzed by infighting, could no longer act as one. Secret votes were held. Fleets refused to mobilize. Even among the elite war councils, some generals simply stopped answering orders. The Terran message had landed without needing to be repeated. Back on Earth, global unity had never been stronger. The old divisions between nations had faded under the weight of a common enemy and the shared pride of what humanity had become. For the first time in history, every major power on Earth worked as one, no longer concerned with hiding their strength. Terran High Command began streamlining communication between military and diplomatic arms, ensuring that every move served both strategy and peace. Earth was not trying to rise above the galaxy, it was offering to reshape it. And that idea, dangerous to some, hopeful to others, began to take root. Slowly, and then more openly, colonies in distant systems began to declare loyalty to Earth's new vision, not as subjects, but as partners. Civilizations that had been mistreated or ignored by the Council found a voice through Terran channels. Earth helped settle feuds the Council had left unresolved for centuries. They built faster, protected smarter, and asked for nothing in return except respect. Even Earth's enemies, those who had once mocked it, now watched with uneasy silence. They had witnessed how easily Earth could destroy, but more importantly, how deliberately it chose not to. That choice was more powerful than any weapon. In the Council's darkest halls, a realization began to grow. Earth could not be stopped, not by force, not by fear. And perhaps, just perhaps, that wasn't a bad thing. For the first time in generations, the galaxy had seen what true restraint looked like. Not cowardice, not submission, but wisdom wrapped in steel. And somewhere, far from the noise of politics and diplomacy, in a quiet council archive room buried beneath layers of encrypted data, a young analyst named Virix scrolled through the Terran battle logs again. He didn't speak, didn't blink, as he watched the patterns emerge, the careful control, the tactical decisions, the mercy shown even when advantage was absolute. And then, with a quiet breath, he whispered what more and more across the stars had begun to believe. This is what real power looks like. The Council, once a shining monument of galactic unity, now stood cracked and uncertain, its pride humbled, its power scattered by a single planet it had underestimated for too long. After the failed invasion and the precision strikes that followed, the galaxy had seen Earth not as a distant anomaly, but as a rising force that could no longer be ignored. Whispers turned into resolutions, and soon the surviving members of the Council called for an emergency assembly, a vote to determine Earth's future place in galactic affairs. What shocked many was the result. Earth was not offered punishment, nor exile, but a seat at the very top, within the High Council of Civilized Powers. Not as a subject, not as a vassal, but as an equal. It was an offer rooted in fear, yes, but also in growing respect. Earth had shown the galaxy something rare: strength without cruelty, power without greed. In the grand chamber above the clouds of Eltheron Prime, where stars gleamed through transparent ceilings, the delegation from Earth finally arrived. Their leader, Commander Leon Voss, was not dressed like the others in flowing robes or ceremonial metal. She wore the dark, practical uniform of a Terran strategist, her steps calm, her presence quiet but unshakable. When she rose to speak, there was no speech prepared, no dramatic posturing. She simply laid out Earth's terms with the same clarity her fleets had shown in combat. Earth would accept the Council's offer, but only under conditions. The Council must transform from an empire in disguise into a peacekeeping and trade-regulating body. There would be no more forced assimilation of lesser species, no more military occupation under the name of unity. Every Council power would place limits on its fleet expansion, and neutral systems would be protected, not preyed upon. Earth did not ask for tribute nor territory, but warned of one simple truth, that if the galaxy failed to change, Earth would no longer hold back. Her words echoed through the chamber, not as a threat, but as a promise backed by terrifying certainty. Silence followed. There was no debate. The vote passed. Reform began. The Council's old war-focused structure was dismantled piece by piece. Oversight commissions were established. Order colonies once considered expendable were granted protection status, and negotiations opened with rebel factions that had been ignored for centuries. Earth did not control these changes directly, but its shadow lay heavy across every discussion. Everyone remembered what had happened when they had tried to bend Earth's will. Back on Earth, fleets returned home not in retreat, but in readiness. Massive hangars welcomed back ships still gleaming with combat efficiency, while planetary defense networks remained fully active. Earth had made its mark, not just by defending itself, but by showing it could reach far beyond and still choose restraint. Its soldiers stood down, but stayed alert. Its AI war networks went into standby, not shut down. Earth had won, but it did not become arrogant. Instead, it watched, waited, and guided where needed. Across the stars, a new balance emerged. Colonies that once feared Council exploitation now sent envoys to Earth for aid and partnership. Trade routes opened between Terran stations and distant outposts. Joint research programs started blending human technology with alien advancements, not through conquest, but through cooperation. Earth had become the axis around which the new order turned, not because it had demanded it, but because it had earned it. Children on distant planets began to learn Terran history in school modules. The term Terran Protocol became the new standard for defensive ethics in war. And in quiet moments, leaders across the galaxy would glance toward Sol and remind themselves that peace was not a gift. It was a choice, protected by those willing to pay for it. In her command center, beneath the Earth's surface, Commander Voss looked up at a projection of the stars, now scattered with new colors, new alliances, and new hopes. She knew that the peace would not last forever. No peace ever did, but she also knew that Earth had done something incredible. It had taken the galaxy's demand for obedience and answered with strength, not chaos. It had changed how power was seen, not by shouting the loudest, but by choosing when to speak and when to strike. Earth had not risen to rule. It had risen to stand. And in doing so, it reminded the stars of a truth they had forgotten. Humanity does not kneel. It remembers. It prepares. It endures. And when pushed, it does not fall. It stands armed to the teeth, forever watching, forever ready.